Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Food COMA, Conversations Over Meals in America. I'm your host, Cynthia, and this is brought to you by Quality SAP, home of the Key Spot app, where you can find and post deals, discounts, events, all in one key spot. I have some special guests here with me today. I have Miss Mimi and Mr. Scott. And they're actually a couple, so this is great. We're going to talk about them, we're going to talk about the food, and it'll be great conversation. So before we begin, let's go ahead and get started with the food. Wow, this looks delicious. So it looks like you brought some chicken soup, or What do you call this?
Yeah, we called it chicken chowder soup.
Chicken chowder soup. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been embarking on together is a healthier lifestyle, including healthier cooking.
Oh, this is so good.
Going with keto with the high fat, good content kind of meals. The chicken chowder definitely fit in with that motif.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get this recipe. It's so delicious.
It's pretty good.
It is good.
Do you both cook, or is it just okay?
Cooking is definitely a team effort.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. We'll get on a roll in the kitchen together, and we're knocking out dishes and cooking all at the same time.
So you're co-chefs.
Yes. Depending on what we're making. Scott will be our grill master, and I'll do all the sides. Or if it's just something in the crock pot, he'll help me chop up everything while I get all the other foods in the crock pot.
Wow, what a great team. So did you do this in the crock pot, or did you do this on the stove, or how did you make it?
This one was completely stovetop.
Mm-hmm.
Scott grilled the chicken
Okay.
separately, and then we did everything else on the stovetop, just in a huge stock pot. Just threw everything in there.
I can taste the chicken. You hear me chomping. This is really good. And it looks like you had cut up the onions and everything.
Some onion, celery. We try to stay away from potatoes because of the high carbs, so we use cauliflower as a substitute.
And that works perfectly.
It's good. Carrots.
You can't even tell the difference with the.
Nope.
It's a little weird at first. Anytime you're gonna have potatoes, you just substitute the cauliflower in there.
Yeah, we've had some good stuff.
You can't even tell the difference.
No, you can't. And then I like the fact that we put shredded cheddar cheese in there. That's the one good thing about the keto diet. For those who know about diets, if you like cheese, if you like meat, that's a diet for you.
Just a little bit extra fat.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. You just have to stay away from the breads and the sugars, but I can handle the cheese and the meat.
And then this one all started because we had a huge container of heavy cream that we needed to get rid of. So we just looked for recipes that would utilize our heavy cream so it wouldn't go bad.
Yeah, this is great. Now, the other item is what I made, and it's crab cake. So I like seafood a lot. That's one of my favorites, having seafoods and crab cakes from different places. So I try to make my own because you save money that way. Plus, I get to get that flavor that I'm looking for.
Yeah. They are really delicious. They're nice and moist.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent.
Very good.
Yeah, so I used the typical recipe for my crab cake where I had mustard and mayonnaise and breadcrumbs, all that good stuff, and normal seasonings, and it turned out pretty good, so I'm happy about it. So let's talk about you guys. Mimi, tell me more about where did you grow up? What was it like for you growing up?
I grew up in a military family, so we kind of moved around a lot. I was actually born in Tennessee, but we only lived there for maybe a year or so before my family moved to Texas.
Oh, okay.
So I lived in Killeen, Texas for about 6 years, and then we moved to Ohio to be near my mom's family.
So you moved to what part of Ohio?
To College Hill.
Okay, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, Cincinnati, yep.
Okay, so you have been around.
Yes.
Military family, you are around a lot of people of different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to travel overseas or anything?
I never got to travel overseas. Both of my brothers were actually born on base in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So even though they were born in another country, they're still U.S. citizens.
Yes, right.
From being on base. But yeah, so they got to do a lot more of the travel than myself. And I have a sister, and my sister as well.
Okay. Scott, what about you? Where'd you grow up?
I'm a little bit less exciting. I grew up in a very small town, very rural farming town. Very conservative.
Where's that? In Ohio or what?
Yeah. Oh yes, in Ohio.
Okay.
So northeast. I'm sorry, not northeast, northwest of Columbus.
Okay.
So just sort of out in the sticks. My high school graduating class was like 70.
Okay.
So very small, very small, kind of tight community, not diverse.
Okay.
In any way.
That's fine.
So religious, conservative upbringing. My entire childhood, I was in church 2 or 3 days a week.
Right.
That sort of thing. So from there, went to Ohio State for a while. I actually joined the military. So did that for several years, and then
So I was going to say the military exposed you to a lot of different cultures. That was your experience.
Absolutely, that was my experience. So, learning to work together as a team, in the military, you learn that really quickly. So I suppose maybe that was the start of my, kind of move to a more diverse surrounding.
Right.
But yeah, I think I've been in Cincinnati for like 6 or 7 years now. So.
Yeah. The interesting thing, and I, on a previous podcast episode, we had a diversity coach on the show, and we were talking about how in some areas, like if you come to the suburbs, you see more diversity because people of all different backgrounds are living next to each other. And I mentioned how I have neighbors from Africa, from India, from Mexico, all of them living in my one street.
Yeah.
And I said how, when you go to like the inner cities, you might see all mainly one kind of culture. If you go out to the urban areas, you might see all of one kind of culture. And so my question to her was, how do we bring people together? Those people who don't have opportunities to have neighbors who are from different areas and not have those experiences, because what happens is people find out about other cultures from the TV, from the computer, from what they see on YouTube, and then from not being around someone like that, then that's their stereotype.
Yeah.
So I see, Scott, in your example, you got a chance to get out of your community and to explore outside of that and kind of see for yourself what people from different backgrounds are like.
Absolutely. I think that people will kind of shut themselves off from other. They kind of live in their own bubble, and their bubble is everybody who looks and thinks exactly like they do. So, getting out of that bubble, I think, is one of the best ways to see for yourself that, hey, we're all just people, and there's great people of every color from every place.
Right.
I don't know. It does kind of. It is sad that when people do just stay within that bubble, and like you said, with the you get your stereotypes from TV and then that sort of thing, but you never experience it for yourself. So.
Right. So what was it? Was it curiosity that made you decide to go off to? Because I've heard this from other people who said they grew up around just people who looked just like them around that area, but when they went off to college, went off to the military, that's when they discovered others who are outside their culture. So what was it, curiosity, or you wanted to just explore, or what was it that made you want to leave home and go to such a large school? Ohio State is huge.
Right. Well, I mean, I was still, even being, it's not far from Columbus. I mean, my hometown is just 45 minutes from Columbus, probably. So, still certainly, in central Ohio area. So, Ohio State was just the place to go,
Right.
So
it's a good school too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say it was any. I don't think there's any like driving force behind it really at that point. Unlike now, for instance, where I actually seek out events like like something like this. I've never done anything like this.
The Food COMA podcast.
Right.
Yes.
So it's kind of exciting to be able to talk openly about.
Yes,
this sort of
exactly.
thing, so.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you came here to share. So, did you want to say anything additional as far as your background? You mentioned the military.
I'm sure I'll have more comments to throw in as we go along, but I guess the one thing to say about that is, everybody from everywhere is who you're going to run into, and not just within our military organization, but also I was in Afghanistan in 2010. So kind of seeing how other people have to live,
right?
You know, seeing what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. You know, we're very, very fortunate here to have you know what we do.
Right.
You know, it's not perfect, obviously, which is why we want to drive discussions like this. But you know, it's certainly far worse in other places.
That is very true. Yeah, and one of the things I just say is we are a rich country, not just in wealth, money-wise, but in culture.
Yeah.
We're one of the countries that have people from all over coming here. Yeah. They're bringing wonderful things, their foods, their languages, you know, clothes, everything, themselves. Just celebration of diversity is what we should be doing here instead of having the divisiveness that we've seen recently. So, you know, we just need to remind ourselves how rich we are with great things here and to appreciate that more.
One of the things that I like from growing up in my family and being around other families in the military is, so this past weekend we celebrated Scott's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And one of our...
Happy birthday.
One of our normal family meals to make when we get together is Korean beef. And then we make this dish called yaki mandu, which is a lot like an egg roll. It's cabbage and ground beef and carrots and just all these wonderful flavors, and you put in a little wonton wrapper and you deep fry it. But it's something that my mom learned from a Korean family that we lived near while we were living in Texas. So it's nice to be able to carry that from childhood, growing up around these people, and then all the way into like you know, meeting Scott and doing it for him for his birthday is nice.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Did you learn how to make it?
I think I'm the only sibling in my family that has not yet made it. It's very labor intensive.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say it's very much a group project.
Yeah.
You know, when you put all this stuff together, you have to wrap it in the little like egg roll thing.
Yeah.
So
it's a bonding thing. You guys are perfect for it. It's like being in the kitchen together.
It was a lot of fun. So my sister cooked all the ingredients and got it all mixed up in the bowl, and then Scott and I were on assembly. So putting the egg yolk around the wonton wrapper and then stuffing it and folding it, and it was nice. It's a nice opportunity to just sit there and talk and while you're doing a monotonous task.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it was nice and delicious. Very delicious.
I will say that the first time that you told me about it, you're like, oh yeah, like it's gonna be great. We're gonna make yaki mandu. I'm like, what are you talking about? But it's fantastic, and like we said, it's very fun to make, and you know,
and it's good.
A great group meal to construct together.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you guys met. How long have you been together?
3 years.
So, yeah.
I think it'll be. No, 3 years. January of 15. Actually, I guess we might be going on 4.
Who knows?
No, we don't know. Neither of us knows. It's been a long time. I think it's been 3 Christmases.
So,
not including this.
So, you know, I want to hear from Scott. What was the story? How did you guys get together? You saw her, you're like, wow.
It was the smile, and it was all over.
Oh, look at that. That is awesome. So where did you guys meet?
We actually met at work. When she was already a part of the team.
Okay.
And I joined.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to be assigned her as a mentor to do like help me with training and get settled in and everything. So I mean, we just spent a lot of time together, obviously.
Did you focus as she was training you?
I tried as much as possible.
Focused enough to move out before me.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, just from her being my mentor, we just like spent a lot of, time together, just, sitting side by side at work, and it, just sort of went on from there, so.
Complimenting my shoes.
Yeah, you got great shoes.
Oh, and a woman likes that. You're paying attention to the details. These little things. Have you bought her any shoes throughout your relationship?
No, I would not feel comfortable buying shoes.
Okay.
Not for her, anyway. I wouldn't know even where to start. She always comes home with these super cute things. If I attempted it,
you think you'd mess up, huh?
She would probably say, what were you thinking? These are terrible.
I think I would first ask you how much you spent, 'Cause I always start in the clearance section.
Oh, okay.
Of DSW. I don't go to the main floor.
Do you know? Yeah. Did you know she shops at DSW?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So at least you go to the right store.
Yes.
Yes. Gift cards are always accepted.
Yes, that's what you do. When you don't know what to buy, you get the gift cards,
Exactly.
and that works out. So was this your first interracial relationship?
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you nervous?
You know, I didn't really think anything about it at the time.
Okay.
I mean, I guess let me ask you this though. What by nervous, do you mean nervous because of like what my family would think, or nervous because of like
nervous in general because it's something new to you. You dated, but maybe not dated outside of your race, or
yeah. I was just having a great time. I mean,
and you thought she was a nice person.
I liked hanging out with her, and
Yeah.
like I said, the smile just knocked me out every time. So before you know it, you turn around and you've been together for 6 months now.
Yeah.
So it just kind of grew along.
So it just happened naturally. That's
Yeah.
great. Now what about you, Mimi? Let's hear your version.
I was just clocking to work every day, trying to get my stuff done, and Scott kept rolling over, trying to talk to me and compliment my shoes.
Did you think it was weird when he kept talking to you all the time and talking about your shoes?
A little bit.
A little bit. Did you get the hint that he kind of liked you, or did you think, nah, he doesn't really like you?
No, I didn't think he did. But then he just kind of kept being persistent. He still kept in touch with people from the previous company he worked with, so he would, and hey, we're gonna go see a movie, do you want to come with us, or we're gonna go to this bar, do you want to come, and that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess.
You didn't think of it as a date?
No, I didn't, but I think it was when I finally actually gave him my number, and he texted me, then I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this guy likes me. It's a little blindsided, I guess.
All right.
I'll send up some stronger signals next
Yeah,
time.
you might want to work on it. No, next time. I'm the last one.
Oh, right. There you go. Wow, and then 3 years later, you guys are still together.
Yeah, 3 years later, still together, looking to buy a house together.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's next?
Buying a house after buying a house.
What's next?
We've talked about getting married.
Okay.
I mean, our first plan was the house. We've talked about retiring together already too. So it makes sense in the timeline.
Yeah.
We just haven't talked about where in the timeline is marriage. But I think you know this too. My family has definitely asked when that's going to happen too. They completely accept him. I mean, now we've never had any issues with him coming to family events or anything. Scott and I were actually together when I was going through losing my brother.
Oh, wow.
He had diabetes and he had a lot of complications from it, so he was in and out of UC Medical, and he was in a few diabetic comas, and Scott would actually go with me to visit him and sit with him, or he would watch my son while I went to be with my family. And we were together when my mom called me to tell me that my brother had passed away. And I mean, just between that, and he went to the funeral with me, and I can definitely remember my aunt asking me at the funeral, when is he gonna propose? Like, he's been with you throughout all of this. When are you guys getting married? So my family's definitely waiting for it too.
Yeah. Well, I know Scott has his timeline. It'll come when it's meant to be.
Yeah.
No pressure, Scott.
No pressure. I think our friends give more pressure than the two of us.
And I will say, cultural differences. Going to family events over at her place, they are not shy about hey Scott, when are you gonna get that ring on her finger?
They will speak up and tell you things.
Very much so. You heard her, we're gonna kill you. My uncles are not shy at all.
What other kind of cultural things have you noticed from being with each other and being around other people? Has anything opened up your eyes in a different way?
So first of all, I am very much an introvert. So going back to, being at family events and things, black folks are loud and very expressive.
I know. Both of us are both stereotypes.
That's just my family.
That's okay, but let it slide.
Maybe that's just your family.
I've been around loud white people.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean that's and that's true for me in any sort of very loud, kind of crowded environment, that sort of thing. I like I said, I'm very much an introvert. So I felt uncomfortable, like, for a while, I would say, but
because you were kind of observing as you were there, kind of taking things
right, because
in,
that was very new.
Yeah, new experience for you.
Yes.
So you're just like, I'm not sure what to do. Can like take it in? Is that kind of how you felt?
So I mean, that's how it started off. But I mean, it's fantastic. I love being over there. I like being with her family, and with. Just doing those simple things like making that Korean beef that we were talking about. Just doing kind of a. I mean, you have to kind of have the whole family like doing the prep work and everything. So. Yeah.
So you were able to open up a little bit to them. Have you shared anything with them, or shared any of your life, or talked about your family with them, or?
I mean, not really. I guess. I mean, I wouldn't say we have like deep conversations or anything.
Not yet.
Like that. So, I don't know. I guess it's always kind of a more like a really like lighthearted environment.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, all right, everybody listen. I need you to tell you about my past.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, that's good that you're getting to know her family and you're opening up. Yeah. And Mimi, what about you?
It's been interesting. The dynamic is definitely different going into Scott's family events than going. I'm obviously gonna have that level of comfort with my own family, and I think we're all generally on par, like politically speaking, specifically. Like I don't think there's ever any weird or awkward conversations around that. But so it's a little different going out to visit Scott's family sometimes, just because they are in kind of a rural town, and like you said, it's kind of segmented. I think they all kind of follow one general political view, and being so far, not that I think anything would ever happen, but I feel like I more so keep comments and things to myself, because you're surrounded by someone else's family, they all share the same political view, you don't want to be the odd man out. I mean, specifically, I think of the instance when we were there for, I think it was Thanksgiving last year, and the Colin Kaepernick stuff came up, and your grandfather was talking about, was kneeling appropriate? Do you think that's a proper forum? He didn't agree with it, that kind of thing. And like my stance was just, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to stay out of it. I'm in someone else's home. We shouldn't speak politics, in mixed company anyway. And I actually had to go to the restroom while all of that was happening, but it was one of those circumstances where it's like, if I get up and leave the room, I don't want them to think that I'm upset or angry about the conversation that they're having.
So uncomfortable.
So I hold it. Yeah, so I just had to kind of like sit there and hold it in. But Scott's grandfather actually directly like brought him into the conversation, asking him how he felt about it. And it's one of those things, I think I was sitting next to him and I was trying not to like eagle talon claw his leg to like hold himself back, because I mean Scott's definitely, he's an opinionated person. He'll speak about what he believes and feels, and he can be very passionate about it, and I didn't want it to be some huge conflict or turn into something more of like, oh, we only have that viewpoint because your girlfriend's African American or anything like that. But it was good because it stayed from a military perspective. So
what was your viewpoint, Scott?
Well, so my grandpa was in Korea, so he was a military guy as well, and I mean, like Mimi said, it was just very. I'm not just gonna bring up my viewpoint and say, hey, look, this is how it is, but he directly engaged me, like based on, hey, like, we were in the military, we fought. Why is he kneeling like that? It's disrespectful. So I addressed it directly, and I said, well, Grandpa, I think that I fought so that he could kneel if he wants to. If he wants to stand, he may. If he wants to lay down, whatever you want to do. Because, I mean, we live in a free country, and that's why I fought.
Okay. How did he respond to that?
I don't know if he really said anything back.
He asked if there were bullets in your guns, and he said that's why you felt that way, because you didn't have to have bullets in your guns when you went to war, which, I mean, was not true, obviously, and I think you said that. And then I think at that point it was time to eat, so So
that was gonna be a
very,
oh my God!
Yes,
Like you didn't have to shoot anybody. Okay.
Yeah. So it got to, and I mean, and even after that, because you have to think like, at least for me, it was how do I react to it from here?
Right.
Like, do I think that he is making these statements because he feels a certain way about African Americans? Is it just because of, if he feels that it's just disrespectful to the flag? Like, how do I go on? And is he gonna say something later on? But I mean, I honestly think it was just all related to that moment. I mean, he gave me a shoulder rub later on, and we talked about normal day things. Are you going to play cards later? And it was just fine from there.
Okay.
So I don't know if he was just sort of speaking whatever was on his mind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when you guys first introduced each other to your families, like from your perspective, Scott, was anybody surprised that you came home with an African American girlfriend?
I mean, it was. If they were, they wouldn't say anything about it.
Okay.
So there's kind of like the shifty side eyes and stuff like that. But I mean, nothing expressly stated that was like, hey, what is she doing here? Like, why is this happening? Nothing like that.
Okay.
But I mean, just sort of, you just get the feeling that the family's scandalized or something.
It's the talk of the town.
Right. So more like that kind of, it's kind of a taboo thing as opposed to like that, that's forbidden.
So your town, has there been any growth in diversity since you were younger growing up there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean we go back for holidays and stuff like that. It's not like I hang out there or anything like that. So I don't really know what the the makeup of the school is and that sort of thing these days. But I would certainly think that it has not changed a whole lot in the last 15 years or whatever.
Now, how did you feel? I mean, were you comfortable when you walked in, or was there any hesitation when you first were introduced to his family?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I ever felt that they felt differently about me because I was African American. I think we get the most kind of feedback and whispers because we're not married and we live together. And it seems like a very religious town. His mom's definitely religious. I know you've had aunts make comments about, we want to see you in heaven and the great hereafter.
Oh, wow.
Get your life right. So I think more from a perspective of not being married and living in sin and that kind of thing. Right. I think we feel more heat from that than we do from being of different cultures.
Okay. So then what about when you guys are out and going on dates and anything, and how do you feel? Are you comfortable? Is it just like you're in a regular relationship? Nobody should be looking at you any differently? Or have you had any interactions that have been inappropriate in some ways?
I'm not that I know of.
I think we've gotten a few looks at the gym, like both our two gyms, the one we went to, which are both in Landon, so they're both local. But it's always been older people. It's never been anyone our age, middle ages. It's always been the older population that just kind of give us looks like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, never expressly saying anything, but just like you giving you a real bad side eye. So it's, I mean, this one guy at our gym it looks us up and down every day. It's
you guys should kiss in front of him.
We don't hold back.
Be like, hi.
But yeah, I mean, as far as actually being out, at dinner or a movie or something like that, no, like not, I've never encountered anything like that. So
well, good.
Yeah,
because I mean, now there's a lot of people with different backgrounds and racial relationships. It's very common.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned, a lot of the older generation are still looking back at what they experienced, and in a lot of cases there was segregation, and especially in the South and in the North there was segregation, North Side or East Side, West Side in different places. So, yeah, you would get that from a lot of older people sometimes, but that's okay. So what have been the benefits as far as like you guys being together as a couple, learning from different cultures? Has there been any great learnings that you've had?
I think we've had a lot of really good dialogue. We watch Hidden Figures together.
It was a good movie.
And I feel like you made a lot of comments on how, like, you didn't realize that it was like that, and just...
Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like, of course we know all our films.
So,
yes,
I mean,
I've seen it.
I don't know how historically accurate it was, but if even half of those types of things, happened in a scientific agency like that, then it's just a very depressing thing. So that was, it kind of sparked those kind of conversations. Yeah. I think one. Well, I don't want to say. Well, we'll say one topic for me is sort of the police brutality and things like that. And her and I have had some pretty heated conversations because several years ago, I feel like those sorts of things have been getting a lot of attention here over the last several years, and that just kind of started, a couple of years ago. So, I was kind of the mind that, hey, you need to comply, you need to do what the guy's saying, and you don't have anything to worry about. But, seeing everybody's got cell phones now, so seeing video, like reading accounts, in statistics on the numbers of it's
so it's more than just people just complying.
right,
yeah.
exactly.
If you comply, you can still die.
right.
Yeah.
So that was a really major thing, and we've had definitely some.
We had some. We need to stop talking about this right now. Conversations, because it was that bad.
So and I have definitely changed my view about that entire topic.
Was it the conversations heated prior to his switching of his view? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
and
because of that standpoint, from hearing him say, well, if they were doing what they said, what the officer said, then it wouldn't happen. And it's like, how is sitting on a park bench reading a book and then you get shot and him not complying? So it's just kind of being open to the realization that it's more than that.
Yeah. And there's just so much evidence for it at this point. With statistics is one thing, but then you see videos of tragedies like that happening, and it's just wow, this is a really systemic problem, and it doesn't come down to how that individual is reacting to the officer. It's there is definitely more going on there than that. So that is certainly something that my way of thinking has changed, because of conversations with her.
So that's interesting. You said your way of thinking has changed. Have you shared that perspective with others, like friends or family members, to get them to also see that?
Once again, being an introvert, I'm just not one to kind of like push that conversation or that sort of thing. Even doing something like this, is outgoing for me.
Yes,
so
it's awesome.
And really, her and I, talked about it for several days about whether to do it or not, and I was like, what, I have strong feelings about it. Let's do it. It's it should be a good experience, and it lets us drive the conversation about about these social issues that we're all running into right now. So
and you're being an advocate. Both of you guys are being an advocate for diversity and showcasing how it's important to listen to each other, and you can learn from each other, and culturally you can grow. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So even though you are an introvert, what you're doing is important, because hopefully we'll have other people listen to this message and they'll learn from you all and maybe get a different perspective. People who may look like you might say, well, wait a minute, maybe I should think about what I'm saying and learn and read more before I just have this one perspective. Maybe there's more to it than just what I thought, So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to read. Current events, history and science and all that stuff. I love to learn, and when you kind of start digging into sort of the root cause of racism, and there's no other conclusion, but we still live in a society that is very severely segregated in a lot of ways.
You're right. Yeah. And racism has not stopped, and it is still impactful to people. So we could see in the more poor communities how racism has impacted those communities and not having equal opportunities, equal school systems, and that. So those are things we need to focus on building and working on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you have to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think really that is the way to do it. You know,
Exactly.
you can't just sit in your bubble and think the way you think and nothing's gonna change my mind. You know,
Exactly.
you gotta get out and have conversations and
meet people.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So I mean, all in all, it's been a fantastic, learning experience. It's been a great, 3 or 4 years of my life now, and
I'm your greatest adventure.
you're my greatest
All
adventure.
right, I love it.
We say that all the time. So.
Love it. Greatest adventure. Well, this has been great having you two on the show. Mimi and Scott. Any last words? What do you think about the podcast? Food Coma, Conversations Over Meals in America. What are your thoughts about this concept?
I'll defer to you. I've been talking a lot.
I mean, I like it. I think it's opened up a lot of dialogue. I think maybe some things that we haven't necessarily or would not have thought to talk about with each other that we were able to cover today. I don't know if I've ever really fully heard a lot about your background per se, as far as like why you chose to go to Ohio State and that kind of stuff. So that was good to get into as well.
I'm a Buckeye. That's
What about you, Scott? What are your thoughts about this conversation and celebration of diversity?
Well, I think you're doing a fantastic thing.
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, I think this is, you don't change people's mind posting something on Facebook or, any other, social platform or anything like that. I don't think you're going to change anybody's mind. Well, when it comes to, like, protests and marches and things like that, I mean, that can be a great, show of solidarity with other people who think the way that you do, but are you going to change anybody's mind on the other side of the barrier?
Right.
That's not really a good forum to do that, so meeting people and having small conversations and realizing that, hey, we're all just people.
Right.
We're not that different.
So,
it's all about the interaction, because once someone when you guys got outside of your family bubbles, got into the world bubbles, you got an opportunity to meet people from different backgrounds. And then that was able to form your own opinion on who people are, what they're like. So if we can get others to do the same, then we could probably see better results in this world. That's just my thought.
I absolutely agree.
So thank you again for being my guest on the show. And hopefully you guys will share this with others. And again, Food Coma is brought to you by Quality SAP, home of the KeySpot mobile app. And you can go to www.keyspotapp.com. And also be sure to get a copy of Yes You Can, 10 Great Ways to Market Your Business. It's a great book for small business owners, allowing them to learn great ways to market. And we will see you on the next episode of Food Coma, Conversations Over Meals in America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Find your key to the spot and unlock big savings at Key Spot.